Welcome to Window Dressing, sirens and gossip rag goddesses of the new millennium. 2 weeks ago, I released a Diddy addendum episode, in which I discuss my ex-boyfriend, pimp, and child sex trafficker, Daquan Sawyer. I have spoken about him several times in the last year in different episodes of my podcast, but never as directly as I did 2 weeks ago. I don't think I would have ever spoken about my experiences with him in this forum if I hadn't been publicly outed by my ex-boyfriend last year on a popular podcast. He referred to me as a bottom bitch on air. His flippancy when trying to explain the seriousness of my past experiences and his internalized misogyny felt like the compounding of a lifetime of trauma at the hands of men. I bring this up because I want to be clear that my interest is in giving women back their power, and even though it's scary, that includes myself. Initially, I forgave him for this unforgivable slip of the tongue. Many women, myself included, forgive what should not be forgiven because it temporarily anesthetizes the pain you feel to accept a version of events that erases your experience and centers his. In the long run, you wake up with a rage deeper than the ocean. I don't want to accept what I know is wrong and dangerous ever again, and I refuse to protect another man who hurts me. Now, for my third and final Aubrey O'Day episode. I pick back up post-makeover. Aubrey is offered the cover of J'adore magazine. It's another press opportunity she is awarded solo and independent of Diddy. D. Woods and Aubrey go out to the magazine release party together to celebrate. Aubrey is wearing a silver, jewel-encrusted, old Hollywood-inspired gown that resembles a statue of a goddess. Her hair is platinum blonde, pulled back and poofed up at the crown. She looks like a cross between Poker Face era Lady Gaga and Valley of the Dolls era Sharon Tate on this occasion. The pushback from Diddy is inevitable, but is further fueled by a TRL, that's MTV's popular show Total Request Live, visit in which Aubrey is asked about Diddy's comments that her party lifestyle is a threat to the group. She says that Diddy is misinformed. Women can be more than one thing, and just because she likes to party doesn't mean she isn't involved in philanthropy and doing good generally. She publicly rejects Diddy's slander and insists on her right to be multifaceted. This, combined with the attention she has been getting outside of the group and outside of Bad Boy's purview and therefore Diddy's control, creates tension. Diddy gathers the girls to address what he says is an off vibe in the group. He says, "Something ain't feeling right about this situation, just the overall style and imagery of it." He points to Aubrey as he speaks. "You want to show all your skin, and you want to be naked. But the whole concept of Danity Kane was that it comes together as one." This is another example of Aubrey being accused of being a slut without actually calling her one. The dispersions he is casting are aimed with specificity to undermine her self-esteem. In Aubrey's confessional interview, she points to the fact that Diddy singles her out. She says, "It just feels like nothing I do he is ever happy with." Well, she is right. Imagine how confusing that must have been for her. She was singled out because of her star power and beauty, but was told it was because she looked and acted cheap. That shit stays with you. Unfortunately, society makes sure you don't forget because those sentiments are rooted in victim blaming and women hating, which is reflected back at women like the fucking sun. Diddy asks her, "What do you want to look like, though?" Aubrey is dressed in black pants, a black tank top with jewel-encrusted straps. Her hair is wavy and soft, her lips are glossed, and her eyes are shadowed. Glossed lips, as opposed to lipstick, is one of Diddy's preferences that made it onto the requirement list for any female guests of the Freak-Offs and was a well-known preference even before the list of requirements went public. Aubrey looks beautiful. This is a perfect, casual yet glamorous look. Some may even say she is a Bardot for the modern era, which was Diddy's agreed-upon look, but the issue isn't really her look, it's her power and who owns it. He continues, "Do you want to look like a Playboy playmate?" Hugh Hefner is the only other person I have ever heard of who wouldn't allow lipstick on his women, specifically red lipstick. His reasoning turns out to be very similar to Diddy's. He wanted accessible girl-next-door types, not grown-up, embodied women. For someone who follows Hefner's playbook so directly, Diddy sure is weird about playmates. Aubrey answers, "I'm not focused on me. I'm focused on what this group should look like and how I should fit into the situation." He says, "You like big hair, though. You like big hair. You like big hair. You like a lot of makeup and all that shit." This is straight up trolling. It feels so bad and gross. It's difficult to articulate the intensity of this statement. He is essentially making fun of her and calling her trash, but the focus on her appearance and not her role in the group is really, as Aubrey would say, pimp and hoe shit. Aubrey is pulled into this insane debate about hair and makeup. She says she doesn't like big hair and she only likes certain makeup. She adds that she has worked with all of Diddy's suggestions. At this point in the conversation, he actually brings in the wardrobe stylist into the studio and asks her in front of everyone. Aubrey asks the stylist to back her up. She says, "Don't I try to cover my problem areas?" The stylist says, and I quote, "It's not necessarily just the stomach area. Aubrey, you have to admit that when you want to do something, you want to do it." Okay, let's pause. First of all, the fact that Aubrey has to defend her devotion to covering parts of her body that are quote-unquote problem areas on national television and in front of the whole group is really fucking crazy. The stylist saying, "When you want to do something, you want to do it," means very little to me in or out of context. Of course she wants to do what she wants to do. Everybody wants to do what they want to do. Aubrey continues to defend herself by saying she does what Diddy told her to do, which is watch herself with a critical eye on TV and fix anything that doesn't look attractive. That sentiment is heartbreaking on its own. But instead of responding to it, Diddy says, "I don't want you to look like Pamela Anderson." Now, I am sure he didn't realize it at the time, but this is the most revealing thing he has said so far. Of course he doesn't want her to look like Pam, because she is the first real example of a girl-next-door type that took her power source, owned it, and became a bigger star than the men around her. So that adds up, idiot. He continues to chip away at her until finally Aubrey says, "If you hate me, why do you want me here?" This is a relatable moment. When someone beats you down until you feel like nothing, your only play is to truly ask them why they hate you or what the point is. His response is, "I don't have to have you here. Let's get that clear. I have you here because I feel you're talented, but don't get it twisted. I'm starting to think, why do I have you here?" This is an oldie but a goodie. He is basically saying, be grateful, bitch. It's that familiar pimp and hoe shit on full display again. He stands up and starts to yell. "You clear on that? You understand now? You may not be here then. If anybody wants to go with you, they can go too. Don't get it twisted. Man, it gets fucking dark and lonely. It does. Trust me." The last bit is a threat to her career prospects if she leaves. I am certain of that. He sabotaged Cassie's career partly through professional blackballing and partly through cruelty and the slow degradation of her self-worth. I know I haven't spoken in depth about Cassie Ventura, but she was a rising star and a talented singer until she started dating Diddy. Diddy held Cassie back from releasing new music after they started dating. He stated publicly that she wasn't ready, which is wild considering that she was already a successful artist before she started dating him. After their fight, Aubrey talks to Diddy privately and tries to smooth things over. Her approach is effective because his antics are about control. So when she comes to him to address issues he caused, the power goes back into his hands. His whole issue with Aubrey is that he is losing his grip on her. That's it. So when she goes to him and even slightly acquiesces, he wins, and she protects herself against having to go it alone professionally in a landscape that he largely controls. In their conversation, Diddy says he hasn't tried to demean her, just, quote, wake her up to the opportunity she has. Aubrey responds by saying, I want you to be hard on me. I appreciate the fact that you're hard on me. It would worry me if you weren't. Aubrey is trying to stay open to constructive criticism, but there is an edge to what she is saying that feels analogous to the Crystal's lyrics, he hit me and it felt like a kiss. That is not to say that she is asking for it, or even that lyric or its reiteration in Lana Del Rey's lyrics or Courtney Love's over the years should be interpreted as such. It points to a mode of care that has been normalized in society between a man and a woman. If a man shows anger, yells, hits, or belittles, at least he cares. This is part of chauvinism and part a genuine desire for an emotional response from men. In a society where men are not taught to be emotionally expressive in a healthy way, any indication of strong feelings can be misinterpreted as care, especially when being cared for by a man gives you more value as a woman, or in Aubrey's case, when being seen by a man, Diddy specifically, gives her a career and options that she simply wouldn't have without his support. The problem is that support is control, regardless of the setup. Women give their power over to men in exchange for love because we are raised to do so, even if we aren't aware of it. I would also make the point that the world is set up to reward men's expressions of power, not women's. So sometimes, as a woman, you align yourself with a man just to survive. Diddy's tone changes around the time of Danity Kane's Welcome to the Dollhouse tour. They blow him away with their performance, and he love bombs them accordingly. When Danity Kane is in Las Vegas for a show, Aubrey shines in a pink string bikini poolside. She does her best Anne Margaret, bringing a confident, embodied, and bouncy energy to her 2000s does 1960s look, both in energy and visually. When they shoot the video for their single Bad Girl, Aubrey extends the Anne Margaret reference by wearing a red wig. The video centers on each girl's alter ego, and Aubrey's is a redhead. The video and song features Missy Elliott, who has some of the most iconic music videos of the era and adds considerable cachet to this one. The concept is heavy with comic book style imagery featuring the girls as themselves and then their alter egos escaping the bondage of men, sometimes literal bondage. The alter egos become the aggressors. The gender role switch is more male fantasy than female empowerment, but I will take what I can get in these difficult times. Aubrey starts off with her original blonde beauty looks, highlighted with hair extensions and a two-toned gray dress worn with matching gloves. The look references Kim Novak as Madeline in Vertigo, but is updated for the era. This is 2008, so the update means it's tight, short, and slutty in the best way. It's not the demure slutty of the 90s, it's the trash slutty of the mid-2000s. Aubrey is in an interrogation room until the mood switches, and her alter ego, the ravenous redhead, comes out and takes control, throwing her interrogator onto the table. The lyrics of the song are, "When the red light comes on, I transform." The red light district reference is what it is. Their performance in the video is embodied regardless of their empowerment being based on sexual aggression. It still works even if the male gaze is satiated by it. After the tour, the video shoot, and vacation, Danity Kane, Day 26, and Donnie are all called in to speak to Diddy. He quickly lets the boys go and asks Danity Kane to stay behind. Aubrey looks like she knows what is coming, but as an audience, we have no idea. He lists their accomplishments before saying, "I'm unsure about the future of this group." He says, "Y'all lives have played out in front of the camera, but then there is a portion of your lives that play out when the camera is off. We're coming to a crossroads right now in the reality of our relationship. And it's really just time for some real talk on where we're going with it, because we got to figure out what the future of this group is. And I just need some honest, real talk. I don't need no bullshit. Because for me, the reality of the situation has changed with the vision. So, Andrea, a couple of months ago, I had got an email that you were thinking about leaving the group." Andrea starts to cry a little. She attempts to explain, but is unable to. Diddy says, "You and Aubrey don't really get along, right?" Andrea tries to say the problem is with the management, not the group, but he talks over her. He says that it is normal for there to be problems inside a group, and if everyone just addresses it, they can move on. He says, "Aubrey, there was a time when you sent me an email too, when you felt like you had it with the group." Aubrey says, "I never had it with the group. I never said I quit. I have never said I want to quit." Diddy responds, "I didn't say that." She says, "I had it with feeling unhappy in different situations, and I think that there are a lot of issues, and most of them are much bigger than this group." She is calling Diddy and the management out, but she is doing it covertly, likely out of necessity. He asks her, "So what is it?" Aubrey addresses the group and asks them if it's okay if she shares what they have spoken about privately. They all nod. She describes feeling like no one around them has offered them the kind of support the group needed to thrive. She specifically compares Danity Kane to a family without parents. She is pretty careful and soft in her descriptions of the situation. But that doesn't do anything to negate the force of Diddy's response. He says, "I try to take responsibility for my reality. If I let someone dictate my reality, that's my fault. So if I let myself be in a situation where I don't have the right management, that's my fault." "If I let someone dictate my reality, that's still my fault," is one of the most outwardly victim-blaming lines I have ever heard on TV. This doesn't really need a lot of commentary, which is why I'm using the verbatim quotes from this meeting. Diddy has consistently said he is the boss, warned them against questioning him, and then blamed them for being led astray. It's outrageous and quintessential gaslighting. Aubrey says in response, "You want to know what the internal issue is? It's a trust issue. Minus everything around us, it's a trust issue." Aubrey goes on to outline how she has been hearing that Diddy is using Dawn on his new album, and he did not think to communicate that to Danity Kane. Of course that will cause infighting and confusion. It's just a simple lack of communication and respect. She says, "I don't think anything can exist without communication. Not a marriage, not a relationship, not a group, not anything." Diddy's response to her is a totally irrelevant diversion. He says, "One thing that's clear is there's a clique in this group." This statement quickly devolves into him accusing Aubrey and D. Woods of leading the way in mean girl-style group politics. He then moves on to Andrea and Aubrey. He says, "I don't ever see y'all two speak. That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life." Okay. A few minutes ago, he said to Andrea that it is totally normal to have fights in a group like this. Now it's the weirdest thing he's ever seen in his life. This man is a fucking monster. He asks Dawn what she thinks. She blames the group for the problems and gives Diddy what he wants. She is especially adept at reading him and accommodating him. She has her reasons, self-protective ones that I don't want to shame her for. Diddy gives the group a warning. He says, "Emotions will make you broke. You always make me look like a bad guy on TV, and I'm not going to look like a bad guy." If you want to blame it on anyone else but the people right here, you are going down the wrong road. He admits to having Dawn sing on some tracks on his new album, and then deflects away from his secrecy to what he says is the real issue in the group. Specifically, Aubrey's jealousy. He calls them all weak. This will sound familiar to the women in my listening audience who have been made to feel like they were the problem in relationships where their boyfriend or significant other feels the right to cross boundaries. Whether that be emotional or physical, there is an unsaid agreement women seem to be held to by men. We are made to feel like we must accept what is essentially the dictates of men. Our feelings aren't real or important, only the reality as defined by the male in the relationship matters. Aubrey knows this and speaks up. She says, "I think it would have been good if you would have communicated that." She calls the behavior out as manipulative. Her feelings about his concrete words and actions incite anger in him. He says, "I'm not doing anything negative or foul." I have an ex who once said, "I'm going to punch you in the face." This is a man whose whole identity is being not an abuser. He never hit me, but the threat was hard to ignore. When I called him out on it, he laughed at me like, how dare I twist his words? The thing is, his words weren't twisted. It was a clearly articulated threat, and I reiterated it to him verbatim. Words have meaning, and so do actions. Whether it's a fist to the face or screaming that you're a cunt while you're crying, it's abuse. And I, for one, am sick to death of being asked to assume the best about men who are literally showing me their worst. Aubrey responds to Diddy's vitriol with a simple request. "Okay, well, can you communicate that better?" Diddy says, "I don't have to do that. That's what I want you to know. You have to deal with the reality of where you're at." This is where we start to get to the heart of his perspective. He will not communicate with her or Danity Kane because he's the pimp and she's the hoe. Once again, it's a bit like saying, "Know your place, bitch." Aubrey says, "If there's plans to take a member and do a solo album, and we're sitting here working on the group, you want us to sit and trust that we'll never know when you're going to make a move? That's what we have to do?" Diddy says, "You don't have to. That's the beauty about America. You could leave. I don't have no shackles on you. You can leave. If you don't like the way I do business, you can leave. But it isn't even that deep. You're making it that deep." Aubrey says, "I'm not making anything. I, for one, wish he wouldn't bring America into it, especially at this time. I started writing these Aubrey O'Day episodes before the election. Now, all I can think about is that Trump might let Diddy out of jail, being that he publicly said he was a good guy, similar to his sentiments about Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. All I can do is hope that that doesn't happen." This is a typical attack on Diddy's part. He is blaming her for requesting clarity about the boundaries of their professional relationship. According to him, not only does she not have a right to ask, but the fact that she did has turned a simple disagreement into an all-out war. That is why her response, "I'm not making anything," is a good one. It just states the truth. He is having a tantrum because he isn't being treated like a sovereign ruler. He goes on to say that this isn't the vision he had for the group. He says to Aubrey, "I don't want you in the group no more." He adds that anyone who wants to go with her can. He continues, "I don't like her energy. I don't like her style and the direction she's going with it. I don't like what she does to the brand when she's wildin' out here, being overly raunchy and promiscuous. There's nothing else to talk about." This is the crux of his dismissal. His public stance is that she is a hoe. It's more than an outrage, it's familiar. I grew up in this time period, dealt with these same sentiments, and still do, though they have changed shape some to suit the current climate. I think we all know how deep the hatred of women goes. But during this time period, Aubrey represented a double-edged threat. She was outspoken and glamorous. There is an unspoken rule that you can't be both. This is ridiculous, of course, but because women are not allowed to take up space the way a man does, there are unspoken rules about how and when we can take that space. Aubrey will address this later when she speaks her truth in a post-firing TRL interview. Shannon is visibly upset during Diddy's little speech. He turns to her and asks her if she would like to go with Aubrey. She says, "I don't know if it's Danity Kane without the five of us." She holds this line from here on out. A decade or so later, she and Aubrey formed the group Dumb Blonde, a critically acclaimed success that eventually dissolved but made an impact. Diddy then turns to D. Woods, Aubrey's best friend in the group. He says, "You don't look like a happy camper." She says, "No, I don't think anyone has been happy for a long time in this situation." He says, "Okay, you can go too." She asks him if he is sure. He says he is. She says she respects him and his decision. Aubrey seconds that. Both of them are smart enough to let him hang himself with his own rope. Diddy backtracks and says to D. Woods, "Let me back up. Let me not let you catch any of her energy." D. Woods doesn't budge. He moves on to Andrea. She reiterates Shannon's earlier statement. There is no Danity Kane without the five of us. He says, "There will be a Danity Kane, though." This begs the question, whose intellectual property is Danity Kane? He is framing it as his, or at the very least Bad Boys, but later he will say that he doesn't want the group to be signed to a different label, indicating that the name, or at least the talent, might not be under his complete ownership. After he leaves the room, the girls all hug and cry, including Aubrey and Andrea, whom Diddy pitted against each other only moments ago. D. Woods and Aubrey leave since they were the ones who were fired. That reality is important because Diddy gaslights everyone after this event and pretends that infighting broke up the band as opposed to the actual cause, which was him using his authority to dismantle Danity Kane and publicly announce that Aubrey is promiscuous. After all, or at least most, is said and done, the girls, the boys of Day 26, Donnie, and Diddy go on TRL and speak to VJ Sway about the breakup. For those of you who didn't live through or partake in MTV of this era, Sway was a well-known MTV VJ. Diddy was not there in person, but he called in to trash Aubrey on national television again. Diddy says to Sway that Aubrey has changed since he chose her for the group. Notice that he chose her. She did not earn a spot. He literally says, speaking of himself in the third person, Puff is not the bad guy. He goes on, I got love for Aubrey. I just want to work with the person I signed, not the person fame made her. You have to be fucking kidding me. This is that well-worn position of knocking a woman down a peg if she gets a little recognition or power. Her leading personality trait is no longer moldable because she is no longer a teenager, so he discarded her. That's what happened. It wasn't fame. Sway asks Aubrey what she thinks of all this. I'm going to quote her in full because I think it is important. She says, I want to be completely real with all of you. I had this nice little thing to say to all of you to make you see what I really am, what my character is, how much I have defended Danity Kane, how much I love this group, how much I have this entire situation's back from the beginning. And then I heard what Puff said, and it brought me back to the haters and the blog sites and all of the people that constantly want to call me a hoe and say that I don't represent women and say that because I'm real and say what I feel that I'm disrespecting people as a woman. And I just want to really tell y'all the truth. I walked out of this building. I was not going to come up here on this stage just 5 minutes ago. Because I'm so sick of having to defend myself as a woman, because I really, really believe in myself, and I really, really want people to get it so bad. But there comes a point when you just get so sick of doing it. She audibly chokes back tears here. But I want to tell you, I stopped myself because I thought of all the people, because this isn't just about me. This isn't about Danity Kane. This isn't about Puff. This isn't about any of the people you saw on stage tonight all gassed up or whatever. This is about life. We're all living it. We are all trying our best every day. And I know how many people are out there and how many people are criticizing you at your job. Your friends are calling you things. People are telling you you're something you're not. And you fight those struggles every day to just prove who you are. And at the end of the day, I turned around and came out here because this is what I represent. And I would rather be hated every damn day of my life for being real than being loved for something I'm not. The applause in response to Aubrey's speech is deafening. The audience is palpably moved. This is TRL. It is not Oprah. And I have never seen a response like that on the show that wasn't simply fan-based. This feels emotionally resonant. What Aubrey is saying is she would rather be aligned with her value system and be outspoken or quote-unquote real than be perceived as a good girl who is nice. This is one of those breakthrough moments of the mid-2000s, when someone actually said what they were thinking. I remember mainstream culture during this time period feeling very scary for women. I came to find out that counterculture wasn't much better. But my point is that the reality of the climate for women didn't go unnoticed at the time. It was just the way it was. It was some sort of 9/11 backlash that took us back into a 1980s Reagan-era party culture that only saw women as sex objects. The revolutionary feminism of the early 90s was long gone. It had been replaced quickly with slut-shaming and body-shaming. Part of what is interesting about Aubrey's speech is it is similar to the work that Monica Lewinsky went on to do as an anti-bullying champion in 2014. The sentiments behind the anti-bullying movement started to form in the culture by 2009, when this TRL episode aired. At this time, Lewinsky was still a national joke, but one who had survived and eventually took her pain and used it to help other victims of bullying. In my opinion, the work she did created the environment for the Me Too movement to succeed. Aubrey took up that mantle in this moment. She recently posted a story on her Instagram page suggesting a Lysistrata-inspired movement withholding sex from Republican men who actively voted against our interests. I feel like Lewinsky would be proud of that effort. Aubrey dated Donald Trump's son, Don Jr., before his father won the presidency in 2016. They met when she was on the reality show The Apprentice. She has talked extensively about that time in her life and what it was like to see the inner workings of the Trump family. According to her, Don was not at all who he presents himself to be now. Aubrey is a staunch liberal and very vocal about her support for the Democratic Party and specifically women's rights. I think her experience is fascinating and an important perspective. She is sort of the poster girl for the 2000s. She stood up to Diddy publicly, had proximity to Trump, has been on more reality TV than any other person or close to it, had this amazing music career in a time when perfection prevailed, and came out of it able to tell her story and support other women doing the same. Diddy responds to her speech by saying, "Your attitude is going to have you in a dark and lonely place." His words remind me of one of the accusations in Cassie's lawsuit. There is language in it that accuses Diddy of keeping her in the relationship through force and threats. Not just threats of physical harm, but threats of career ruin. He most certainly had the reach and the support to ruin a career. It feels like he went to great lengths to block Aubrey from achieving the kind of success in the music industry that she was capable of post Danity Kane's breakup. 3 out of 5 of the girls reunited in 2013 and released one more studio album in 2014. It is unclear to me if this was under Bad Boy or not. Diddy officially let everyone but Dawn out of their Danity Kane contracts in 2009. Dawn recently filed a lawsuit alleging sexual assault, among many other things, during the years she worked with Diddy. Danity Kane reportedly earned $58 million for Bad Boy. The amount that the girls earned was minuscule in comparison. Dawn went on to be a member of Diddy's group Dirty Money. The members included Diddy, Dawn, and Kalina Harper. The group was short-lived. Shannon and Aubrey formed their own group called Dumb Blonde. The sound was less R&B than Danity Kane and more electric dance pop. Thomas Inskeep of Spin magazine said in a 2015 article reviewing their self-titled debut album, Dumb Blonde is a clever collection of smart tunes that rarely flags and frequently excites. Presented with a wink and a sly grin, it's designed for mass consumption and artistic vision. Now Aubrey is vocal in her support of Diddy's victims and about her own journey through her trauma. She is in control of her sexuality and has semi-recently started an OnlyFans page. She seems deeply curious about her own motivations surrounding sexual content and has talked about these questions on Bunny XO's podcast, also entitled Dumb Blonde. I highly recommend listening to that interview. What is clear to me is that Aubrey O'Day is an intelligent and beautiful woman who carried the scarlet letter publicly at a time when it was difficult to own your own sexuality and be seen as having anything else to offer. To be honest, we still live in that time. It is easy to look back and say that the early 2000s were horrible for women, but the truth is that as many strides as we have made, and we have made many, it is important to look at what kind of women get respect and what kind don't, in any era, including our current one. Redemption arcs abound this season on window dressing, and I can't think of a better person to kick that off than Aubrey O'Day. Thank you for listening to Window Dressing, Sirens and Gossip Rag Goddesses of the New Millennium. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening, and join me next time for the 21st century fairy tale tragedy of pop princess Britney Spears. Thank you for listening. I'm Madeline Jane Auble.